The galaxy was filled with wonders, but also with cruel ironies. When humans ventured beyond their home system, they learned quickly that in the grand scale of the cosmos, Earth was considered primitive, dangerous, and oddly feared. Other civilizations whispered of death worlds, planets where conditions were so hostile that any species born there was marked as brutal survivors. Earth was ranked among them. Yet despite that reputation, humans were often dismissed as backward. For Kalen Vey, a young human ambassador, this contradiction defined his mission. He had been chosen to represent Earth at the imperial court of Zytheria, a star-spanning monarchy ruled by the enigmatic King Serylon. Humanity was applying for limited trade rights and desperately needed allies. Kalen's task was simple in theory: prove humans were civilized enough to be trusted. But as soon as he stepped into the crystalline throne hall, he realized how uphill the battle would be. The court was dazzling, a fusion of living architecture and radiant energy, with nobles shimmering in bioluminescent garments. Kalen, dressed in a carefully tailored suit from mauve, felt hopelessly plain. And waiting at the foot of the throne were the king's 3 daughters, Princess Ceres, Lyra, and Vera. They were beautiful by Zytherian standards, tall and graceful with silver-blue skin and eyes that glowed faintly like stars. Yet their beauty was matched by their sharp tongues. As Kalen approached, their whispers, deliberately loud enough for the court to hear, echoed through the chamber. "Is that the human envoy?" Ceres smirked, her tone dripping with mockery. "He looks so fragile," Lyra added, tilting her head. "Like a hatchling." "Or a servant who got lost," Vera finished, and the 3 burst into laughter. The nobles joined in, and Kalen felt the heat rise in his face. He bowed stiffly, choosing dignity over anger. "I am Kalen Vey of Earth," he said evenly. "I bring greetings from my people." The king watched silently, his expression unreadable, as the sisters continued their quiet giggling. Kalen swallowed his humiliation and began his presentation about Earth's potential as a trade partner. He spoke of resource abundance, of human innovation, of adaptability. But every time he faltered, the princess's stifled laughter twisted the knife. That evening, Kalen returned to his assigned quarters exhausted. He knew he had been ridiculed. Worse, he had failed to impress anyone. He sat by the window, staring at the gas giant that loomed beyond Zytheria's orbit, and wondered if Earth was doomed to remain isolated. The next day, however, fate shifted. A diplomatic feast was held, showcasing cultural exchange. Each envoy was asked to demonstrate something unique from their world. Kalen considered bringing a holographic presentation or reciting Earth's history, but those would bore them. Instead, he chose something else, something raw. When his turn came, Kalen requested a clear space. The court grew curious. He removed his jacket, loosened his collar, and began a martial demonstration, hand-to-hand combat techniques drawn from Earth's long traditions. His movements were precise, powerful, and shockingly fast. He flipped, struck, and countered invisible opponents, the sound of his fists cracking the air. The hall grew quiet. The laughter stopped. When Kalen finished, his chest heaving, the silence held for a moment, then erupted into whispers. Some nobles looked alarmed, others impressed. The 3 princesses were no longer laughing. Vera's mocking grin had faded into something like curiosity. Ceres bit her lip, eyes narrowing with interest. Lyra tilted her head again, but this time in thought rather than disdain. King Serylon finally spoke. "Remarkable, a display of discipline and survival. Truly the mark of a people from a death world." Kalen bowed, trying not to let triumph show. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Humanity has always endured what others thought impossible." Over the next weeks, Kalen's presence at court grew less laughable. Nobles approached him cautiously, asking about Earth's challenges, volcanoes, predators, harsh climates. His answers painted humans not as savages but as masters of adaptation. Slowly, respect bloomed. Yet the princesses still tease him, though their mockery softened. It became less cruel, more playful. One evening, Kalen was invited to join the royal hunt, a tradition of Zytherian nobility. He accepted, though he suspected it was a test. The hunt took place on a nearby moon teeming with massive serpent beasts. Nobles used advanced plasma lances and aerial mounts. Kalen had only a blade and his wits. When the serpent struck, chaos followed. Nobles screamed as the creatures lunged. Kalen acted on instinct, using terrain, timing, and sheer endurance. He climbed, rolled, and struck with brutal precision. In one breathless moment, he saved Lyra by driving his blade into a serpent's eye just as it reared above her. In another, he hauled Ceres out of a pit she'd stumbled into. Vera, fiercely proud, fought on her own, but later Kalen noticed her glance toward him, softer than before. By the end, Kalen stood blooded but alive, while several nobles had retreated in disgrace. The king himself clapped him on the shoulder. You fight like one born of fire and stone. Perhaps the galaxy underestimates humans. The sisters were quiet, each processing their changing view of him. Their laughter had ended. Something else lingered now. But the true turning point came during the Festival of Stars, when suitors from across the Empire gathered to petition for the hands of the princesses. The hall glittered with gifts, jewels, starships, promises of alliances. Kalen stood aside, knowing he could never compete. He was an envoy, not a prince. The suitors strutted, boasting of wealth and lineage. Yet the princesses looked bored. Ceres whispered something to Lyra and Vera, and the three laughed again, not at Kalen this time, but at the pompous noble parading themselves. Then, to everyone's shock, King Cerulean rose. His voice carried across the chamber. Enough. My daughters deserve not shallow gifts, but strength, resilience, and a heart that endures. I have seen such qualities, not in these lords, but in the human. Gasps filled the hall. Kalen froze. The king turned, his eyes fixed on him. Kalen Vey of Earth, you will marry my daughters. The words hit like thunder. Kalen stumbled. Your Majesty, 3 daughters. Cerulean smiled, a rare and formidable expression. Yes, together, they are my legacy. Together, they require a mate who can match their fire. You have proven worthy. The court erupted in outrage and disbelief. Nobles shouted, protesting that a human was unfit. The princesses themselves widened their eyes. Ceres' lips parted in surprise. Lyra's glow flickered in confusion. Vera crossed her arms, stunned into silence. And then, slowly, one by one, they smiled. Ceres, sly and cunning, murmured, perhaps father is right. The human has spirit. Lyra added softly, he risked his life for us. Vera finally smirked. At least it's not boring. Their laughter returned, but this time it was warm, not cruel. The wedding was the most controversial event in Zytherian history. Nobles muttered of scandal, of impurity. Yet the king's word was law. Kalen found himself bound not just by ceremony but by destiny. The 3 princesses, once his tormentors, now became his companions, each with her own challenges. Ceres tested his mind with riddles and strategies, always seeking to prove him clever enough.